All right. So it looks like we're just after 9 o'clock. We got a few more people that are starting to roll in and join. So we'll give this just another minute or two. Looks like a couple more are coming on board now. All right. All right, so we're 9:02. Everybody so far that has joined is in the actual meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started to try to stay on track. We'll go ahead with our welcoming this morning. So you can kind of see a brief agenda over here on the left-hand side of the screen. We're going to start with our welcome. Then we'll have at 9:10 will be an herbicide update from Dr. Brent Sellers. 9:30 to 10 will be our breakout sessions. And then from 10 to 11, we will go to our specialist panel, which will allow our specialists to provide a couple minutes worth of an update as far as what they're working on. And then, from that point, it'll transition and open up to a question and answer forum. So that'll give our participants a chance to interact with some of our specialists, ask any questions that they may have, and hear what the responses are from our specialists. So with that, Luke, I can go ahead and turn it over to you and let you give your welcome and introduction this morning.
All right, thank you, Clay. I just want to welcome everyone on behalf of the Livestock Forages group for the University of Florida here in the Northeast area. This program we normally do in person, and we're kind of sad in that we won't be able to this year, but I'm glad that you all have shown up today for this. Like Clay said, we've got a good agenda for the next couple hours with some of our specialists and some of our agents talking about a variety of topics and specialties. So we hope that you'll enjoy it. If no one has used Zoom before, this program is going to allow us to have interactions with our specialists and agents. There are a couple of features. You'll notice all your videos are shut off and your mic should also be shut off currently. At certain points, we will allow you to use the chat feature, which is at the bottom center of your screen. There should be a little icon that says chat. So if you have any questions through the morning from the speakers or for the speakers, please use that to ask your questions. We have a couple co-hosts that will be facilitating the questions to the speakers as the day goes forward. So again, if you've got any questions, feel free, ask away. But please use that chat feature to be able to do that. We will break out into sessions, so there will be, after Dr. Sellers talks, we will split you up into groups based on what your requirements were for going into the forages or the livestock or pesticide calibration. So you'll be kind of split up into groups where you will have other speakers that will continue on with the program. So if you have any questions going forward, feel free, use that chat feature to kind of interact with some of our speakers and hosts. If you need pesticide CEUs, we will need a few pieces of information from you, which would be your name, full name, your date of birth, and your applicator license number. So we did try to get that information through the registration. I know some of you may not have had your license and could not give that information. When we get into the breakout sessions, we will need that information. So please provide that by private chat to one of our co-hosts. So it can be documented. The other thing you can do is email me directly, which is Harlow, Harlow, 1231 at ufl.edu, and I will be able to help you through that process. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, put it in the chat, and we hope you enjoy it. Clay, I'm going to give it back to you so you can kind of guide everyone and get Dr. Sellers set up.
That sounds good. I appreciate you taking the time to welcome everybody this morning. Luke gave a pretty good introduction, and like I said, it's definitely one of those things that we had to adjust to this year. This is always a in-person and live meeting for us that we hold annually, and so there's a lot of learning curves throughout this process of getting this meeting up and going and keeping it with the structure of having our breakout sessions and the whole 9 yards. I had several questions come in regards to, can I register for multiple of the breakouts? And unfortunately, just due to time constraints, we were not able to do that, but we will be recording this whole meeting, and then that will be able to be shared through a Google site web address that will be shared with each of you after the meeting ends. We will send out that link along with a survey, and so whenever you receive those materials from us, you'll be able to access all of the other breakout sessions that you may have missed. And then we also just ask if you can fill out those survey questions, send them back to us. That kind of lets us know how we did, the value that you got from this program, and will help us in our planning for next year's program. So again, on behalf of the Livestock and Forages Field Day Committee, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to be here with us today. Hopefully you'll be able to gain some valuable information. I really think the team did a great job of laying out this agenda and adapting to the times that we're in right now to pull off this program. We got some great speakers lined up, and hopefully you'll find that information to be valuable and be able to, apply it to your operations or just to your lives and in general. So with that, we are 9:08 and Dr. Sellers is supposed to be taking over this at 9:10. So I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Sellers and let him get started on his herbicide update this morning. So let me go ahead and stop sharing this screen with y'all. So Dr. Brent Sellers is our state extension weed specialist and also the center director at the Range Cattle Research and Education Center down in Ona. He's been a tremendous asset to all of us on the North Florida Livestock Agents Group as far as just being accessible for providing herbicide update, control recommendations, weed identification, and we're glad to have him with us here this morning to be able to share some new information as far as herbicides go with each of you. He will also be on our specialist panel this afternoon. So, if you have any questions, as Luke said, feel free to start putting them into the chat. But if you don't get around to it, in this first short session, he will be around this afternoon to take any questions that you may have. So with that, Dr. Sellers, thank you for being with us this morning, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Clay. And I hope everybody can see my screen. If not, somebody's going to yell at me, but I think we're there. All right, so what I wanted to do, just a little bit of an outline, is go through a new product that Corteva's brought out called DuraCore, and then another one called Resilon that will be hopefully coming next couple of years from Bayer. And then I want to talk about Escort a little bit and some of the generic metsulfurons. Metsulfuron is also the main active in Escort. Give a little bit of a Brunswickgrass update, because I know that's kind of a hot topic up in that part of the state. And then the lesser known herbicides that don't really get a lot of attention. They've been around for a while, and that's AIM. That's been around for many years, but then also one called Sharpen that is relatively new that I didn't even know had a pasture label until last year. So I'll talk about that briefly at the end. So DuraCore, this was brought to the market in 2020. It contains two actives, aminopyrrolide, which is milestone, and then a new active called fluoroperoxyfen benzyl. And this product you might see called the Rinsecore active. That's just kind of the trade name that they give that individual active. It's been in the rice market for a few years now, and they just brought this to the pasture market this year. Use rates are 12 to 20 ounces, and I'm going to really fine tune on those rates here in a little bit. And the label calls for one of two adjuvants, either non-ionic surfactant or methylated seed oil, or MSO. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a comparison between DuraCore and the other products that contain aminopyrrolide. So Grazinex HL is aminopyrrolide and 2,4-D. Milestone is just straight aminopyrrolide, and Chaparral is aminopyrrolide and metsulfuron, or Escort. So an application of 12 ounces would be equivalent to around 19.5 ounces of Grazinex, 4 ounces of Milestone, or 1.6 ounces of Chaparral. 16 ounces of DuraCore would be equivalent to 26 ounces of Grazinex, or 5.3 of Milestone, or 2.1 of Chaparral, and then 20 ounces of DuraCore would be equivalent to about a quart of Grazinex, almost 7 ounces of Milestone, and nearly 3 ounces of Chaparral. Okay, so what's key is our standard rates for Grazinex ranges between 24 and 32 ounces, Milestone 5 to 7 ounces, and Chaparral 2 to 3.3 ounces. These rate ranges are based on what it takes to control tropical soda apple. So for DuraCore to work for us in Florida, we're going to probably have to be between 16 and 20 ounces per acre of DuraCore. And this really came to light when we looked at a dog fennel trial last year, which was the first time I've actually seen DuraCore in action. So let me set this slide up for you. I have dog fennel control on the y-axis, and then our herbicide treatments are across the x-axis. So DuraCore at 12, 16, or 20 ounces, and DuraCore plus Pasture Guard at 12 plus 8 ounces. And these four treatments had MSO added as a surfactant. The rest of the treatments used non-ionic surfactants. So again, we had 12, 16, and 20 ounces of DuraCore. DuraCore and Pasture Guard at 12 plus 8. Had Grazinex at 24 ounces. And then Grazinex plus Pasture Guard at 24 plus 8, which this is kind of my standard treatment for broad spectrum tropical soda apple dog fennel control. All right, so we have control data at 30 days in the blue bars, 60 days in the orange bars, and then the gray bars at a year after treatment. So with MSO, initially a little bit slow with DuraCore at 12 and 16 ounces. It picked up a little bit at 20 ounces on dog fennel. And then adding the Pasture Guard was pretty comparable to 20 ounces of DuraCore at 30 days. You go out to 60 days with these products with MSO, then everything looks to be pretty good, around 90%. DuraCore with non-ionic surfactant, even when we add the Pasture Guard, really didn't get us much above 70% at 30 or 60 days. Graze next, again, without pasture guard, normally not going to do that well on dog fennel, but you add pasture guard to graze next, it really heats up on dog fennel control. So if we fast forward to last fall, which I don't have those ratings in this chart, we started to see a decline in control across all the Duracor treatments, including also graze next. But when we added pasture guard with methylated seed oil as a surfactant, a year later we're above around 90% control, which was pretty similar to our graze next and pasture guard, which was, or still is, kind of our standard. So take home from this slide is that we're probably going to have to use methylated seed oil for good activity out of Duracor. It's just the non-ionic surfactant isn't really heating that herbicide up when we compare it to graze next. So what I'm going to show you next is some aerial footage of the plots that were taken about a year after treatment from this trial. And one thing I've learned about taking aerial footage is that I'm not a very good drone pilot. So I've had to slow this down quite a bit, and I hope it's not too jittery. But I'll try to get this started. Oh, I may not be able to. Well, I can't get my video to play. If anybody has any ideas, shout out at me. Well, I'll just go on. All right, so this year, because we realized that 12 ounces of Duracor wasn't going to be enough to pick up tropical soda apple, we looked at adding some tank mixes with Duracor at 16 ounces. So that's what we're looking at here. Again, we have control on the y-axis. We have different rates of Duracor. I'm sorry, just single rates of Duracor at 16 ounces plus something. So we have Duracor plus pasture guard at 16 plus 8 ounces, Duracor plus Weedmaster, which is 2,4-D and dicamba at 16 plus 48 ounces. And then we have Duracor plus 2,4-D at 16 plus 48 ounces. And this was using methylated seed oil as a surfactant. On the right-hand side, we have Duracor by itself with pasture guard, with Weedmaster, and Duracor with non-ionic surfactant, and then our standard graze next at 24 ounces plus 8 pasture guard with non-ionic surfactant. So this is only 21 days after treatment, but again, we're kind of seeing the same trends that we saw in the previous experiment where MSO is helping the Duracor quite a bit. But again, it looks like we're going to need something with Duracor to pick up dog fennel long term. So we're looking at over 70% control within 21 days with Duracor pasture guard, Weedmaster, 2,4-D at MSO. And without the MSO and using NIS, we're below 70%, except for 2,4-D, which is kind of surprising. I'm not sure what's going on there. And then graze next, which is our standard, we're still below 70%. So typically what I see with graze next to pasture guard is it takes about 4 weeks plus for dog fennel to die that were 30 to 36 inches at the time of application, which is what these plants were. So I'm hoping I'll get the next video to play because this really shows, you know, some good pictures, which I'm not going to. Well, that's really disappointing. Let me try it this way. Can you still see my screen or my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to get this video to play, it looks like. So again, these pictures and videos were taken about 3 weeks after treatment. And as the name shows up, it's actually going over the treated plot. So this is the standard, grazing nix and pasture guard. And then an up-close picture of what those plants would actually look like at 3 weeks after treatment. So this is Duracor with 16 ounces with methylated seed oil. And then the plants are twisting down, but really not dying all that much. Duracor 2,4-D with methylated seed oil. Pretty good activity on this. A lot of these plants are actually starting to go backwards pretty quickly. Duracor with pasture guard with methylated seed oil. Again, looks pretty good. In 3 weeks, pretty active. Duracor and pasture guard with non-ionic surfactant. So this isn't going to look as good as the last picture, but it's still going backwards. So the plants aren't as toasty as in the previous picture. Duracor is 16 ounces of non-ionic surfactant. So this is one, if I can stop this right here. So these plants started to turn downwards like we typically see, but they've already started growing upwards. So these plants are not going to go down at all with Duracor 16 ounces with non-ionic surfactant. Duracor with Weedmaster with non-ionic surfactant. Not as good as with methylated seed oil. And Duracor 2,4-D with non-ionic surfactant. Again, not as good as with methylated seed oil. Duracor and Weedmaster with methylated seed oil. This one looked pretty good. So plants are dying pretty rapidly. And then are untreated. Looks pretty similar to our Duracor at 16 ounces with non-ionic surfactant. All right. So let me go back to full screen. So our next herbicide I want to talk about was Resilon. So the active in Resilon is indaziflam. So this product is already labeled in Florida. Indaziflam is already labeled in Florida as Allion for citrus and Esplanade for vegetative right-of-ways. But Resilon is not yet labeled in Florida. It did receive a federal label. I was told a couple weeks ago by Bayer that they are not going to seek a state level label for us at this point. There's some infighting within Bayer because of the citrus market. So they're trying to figure that part out. Primarily pre-emergence control is what we're going to be looking at. It does have some post-emergence control as well, but we're going to target mostly grass weeds with this and some small seeded broadleaves as well. The use rate will be 3 to 5 ounces per acre, but no more than 6 ounces per acre per year. There will be no grazing restrictions. However, pretty significant crop rotation restrictions. So if overseeding ryegrass is a practice for you in Bermuda grass fields, this is not something that you're going to want to be using. Or if you're using Bahia grass and rotating into row crops, it's got a pretty hefty rotation restriction on that, like 22 months. So it's something you need to be aware of with this product. But it will be labeled for Bermuda grass and Bahia grass. And we're looking at smut grass control as well as other annual grasses as well. I want to touch a little bit on metsulfuron, and the reason I wanted to do this is because when I was first hired a few years ago, Escort and many of the other metsulfuron products, the use rate was 0.1 to 0.4 ounces per acre. And recently I found out from a salesman that you could apply up to 1 ounce per acre, but no more than 1 2/3 ounces per acre per year. However, the generic metsulfurons like MSM60, they still read up to 0.4 ounces per acre. But then again, still no more than 1 2/3 ounces per acre per year. We really want to use this Bermuda grass only, but why we're kind of excited about this rate change is because maybe 1 ounce per acre will work for Brunswick control and Bermuda grass. Maybe it'd be 1.5 ounces. So maybe it'd be 2 applications, just as long as we don't go above 1 ounce and 2/3 ounces per acre per year. So that's kind of what we're working on, just kind of getting into that right now. So since we're on Brunswickgrass, I wanted to give an update on that real quick. So this is some data from a timing study that we conducted in Citrus County last year. So we applied hexazinone in this case from May through September. And then we used 3 rates of hexazinone, 1, 1.5, and 2 quarts per acre. So I have 2 charts here. Again, I have control on the y-axis. On this first chart on the left, I have time of Velpar or hexazinone application. We applied in May, June, July, August, and September. And the blue bar represents 30 days after treatment, and the orange bar represents 365 days after treatment. And this is control based on counts. So we actually counted these plants in the field. And what I wanted to point out here, and I need to tell you that this is averaged over all 3 hexazinone rates on the left-hand side. Basically, take home is May's a little bit early. We don't get as good a control, around 70% at 30 days and then a year after treatment. We get into July and August, we're getting closer to 90%. But still a year out, we're not getting 100% control like we did at 30 days after treatment in August. And I think what's going on in this case is we're getting some seedling recruitment in those pastures. So we're actually seeing new plants when we go out to count a year later. The chart on the right shows 3 different rates of hexazinone averaged over all 5 timings. And basically, we do see a rate response at 30 days and a year after treatment. However, I don't know if it's going to be economical to say, yeah, apply 2 quarts every year. We may look at 1.5 quarts in multi-year applications. I think it's going to take at least 2 years of applications, and maybe even more than that. From some of the trials we're looking at so far, we just put our 3rd application out. That's gone out annually in some plots, and we still have Brunswickgrass coming back into those areas. So we're kind of in for a long fight on this, but I think we're actually going in the right direction. So one of the lesser knowns, so AIM is, the active in AIM is carfentrazone. The use rate is 1 to 2 ounces per acre. I don't recommend this a lot, but where it does help is when you have a lot of day flower. You can add 1 or 2 ounces of AIM with 2,4-D, which is really the best product for day flowers, and really heat up 2,4-D and help speed the death of the day flower. And then the last one I wanted to touch on was Sharpen. Like I said, I just found out that this one had a pasture label last year, so I haven't really done much with this product. The use rate is 1 to 2 ounces per acre, no more than 6 ounces per acre per year for in established forage grasses. Primarily broadleaf weeds are the target. and it does have some post-emergence and pre-emergence activity. I focused on this product with the weed called whitehead broom, or shrubby false buttonweed, or Lara flower. So it's the nectar source for the Lara wasp, for the biocontrol control agent for mole crickets. It does have some pretty significant activity on that plant, so we're still playing with that, trying to figure that out. So this is one of the few products that we've found that is working on that particular weed. So we're working on that quite a bit. So I will open it up for any questions if you guys have any. I think the chat box is active. So if you have questions, and if not, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a phone call. I appreciate your attention. I'll turn it back over to you, Clay.
All right, I appreciate the update. So at this point, hopefully y'all learned a little bit more about some of the new releases and new products that are coming to the market and which ways that they may be applicable from a weed control standpoint. So now that we have wrapped up the introduction for Dr. Sellers' update, we will be transitioning now into our breakout sessions. We will, again, as I said, have the 4 breakouts, which will be fencing, forages, livestock, and pesticide calibration. Those are or will be recorded. So if you would like to watch another one of those videos at a later date, we will be sending out the links so that way you can access all the materials that is being presented today. So with that, we will go ahead and I will ask Miss Cindy to go ahead and put us into our breakouts. This will be a 30-minute session, so as soon as that wraps up, we will automatically be brought back to the main meeting room. And once we enter into the main meeting room, we will proceed with our specialist panel. So hopefully, as you heard Dr. Sellers' updates, as you hear a little bit more in each of these breakouts, it'll start to generate some questions for y'all because we try to align a specialist panel that went along with the breakout sessions. And so that way, some of the questions that can get brought up, the specialists will be able to, answer, and we can have that open dialogue. So with that, Miss Cindy, if you could go ahead and send us to our breakouts for 30 minutes and we can get going with the rest of the presentations.
Okay, and for those of you that aren't assigned, if you just give me a minute, we'll try to get you in a room.